Kia ora and welcome to episode 316 of the Staggerall podcast. This one for me was pretty exciting, one I've been working on for a little while now. Growing up in a household of rowers, we often had the Awesome, is what it was called, magazine on the coffee table at home, and a man that featured many a time and who I continued to watch as I went through university and post-university working life was Eric Murray. Eric Murray is companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit. He's a 2-time gold medal Olympic champion, 8 times world champion, winning 6 consecutive world rowing championships. He also won gold in the coxless pair with the Kiwi Pair, Hamish Bond. They set an unbeaten partnership of 71 races, solidifying themselves as the most successful combination in rowing history. They hold the world record for the coxless pair at those London 2012 Olympic Games. Eric was super generous with his time. You'll hear a little bit of noise in the background. His son Zach made the episode, really. It was bloody fun. There's a dog in there. There's Eric's ex-wife in there. Lots going on. Eric invited me to his home in Cambridge, which you can check out on Instagram. We'll have the links there for that. We have an awesome chat. Hopefully I haven't retraced a lot of what's out there with Eric on various awesome podcasts. Eric sat down with Simon Bridges, Tall Poppy Stories, Between Two Bears, Dom Harvey. I tried to go a bit wider and talk to some of the rowing fraternity that I have the pleasure to know through my brothers and my father. And yeah, we sit down and have quite a monster chat. I hope you enjoy it. Share this out to all around, because Eric's story is massive. He's doing massive work as the patron for Autism New Zealand. And yeah, it's one of those causes that, like many, just need more funding so that more help can be given to those who need it. Right, without further ado, hope you enjoy this one. I had so much fun talking with Eric. He's just one of those people that you feel like you could talk to forever. What a champion. And yeah, share this around. Thank you.
Boom.
Put your ears on.
The ears on, get the bits and pieces in there.
Yeah. Spin around a bit myself.
What happens if I go left ear and right ear?
I don't know. I think it does the same thing.
Bugger all.
Eric Murray, this is an absolute pleasure, mate.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a rowing orphan, so I was sort of quite involved with rowing, both brothers. I think there's plenty of people out there, especially in South Island rowing. I think John O'Connor, Andrew O'Connor, Mark O'Connor, that's a big gap. There's me in between.
Yeah, well, it's a funny one because the rowing community, I think you find there's all these people where the parents did it and then the kids do it, or people are involved with it, and you still see it now. You know, yeah. It's a generational thing, and I feel like it was probably because the only way you're going to spend on your parents was going to be if you were down rowing or something.
Yeah, like you're involved with indoor rowing now. I remember being about 10 or 11. I was a competitive swimmer, and it must have been early internet, and I was with Dad at school and looked up the concept 2 world records for 1,000 metres.
Oh, yep.
And then so, we're at the rowing club every Sunday, and so one morning there's a rowing machine set up in the change rooms, and I bet the unofficial 1,000 metre age group record.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think now that there's a lot more stuff around, and I guess framework around indoor rowing, there's a lot more people doing it. It's an interesting one because I'm on a World Rowing Commission with indoor, and it's growing a lot because if you do the research on rowing, so to speak, there's not that many people that do flat water rowing, right? But it's an Olympic sport. It's pretty big in New Zealand. It's pretty big overseas. And there's a lot of history behind it. Henry Royal Regatta, Head of the Charles, Cambridge, Oxford, all of the ones that everybody sort of thinks about rowing. And then there's indoor, and everyone's like, well, what the hell's indoor rowing? It's like, well, actually, it's just rowing machines. But there was research that came out of Great Britain about 3 or 4 years ago that over 750,000 people use the rowing machine every day. Because you go to the gym and you're like, let's do a warm-up. Bang, you're on, right? And so what World Rowing's tried to do is say, well, it's like cyclists. You get your weekend warriors, and they ride their bike once a week. But they'll be like, oh, I'm a cyclist. So we've been trying to get people to say, look, if you use it consistently, or you get on it and you try it and you compete or something like that, you can say you're a rower. And I think that's one thing, is it's trying to get like sports, when you look at them nowadays, rugby just used to be rugby. But now rugby's so huge, there's sevens and this, and it's cricket. You don't just play one style of cricket. There's T20s, 50 overs, test matches, 2 days, this and this and this. And it's all come under like the umbrella of the organisations. And I think that's one thing moving forward with all the sports. Rowing now, you think about, and there's flat water, which I think, I can't remember what we're going to be calling it. If it's flat, well, classic. It's called classic rowing. Then you've got coastal rowing, you've got beach sprints, you've got indoor. So it's now coming under this umbrella of anything that involves like rowing, so to speak. And I think it's a really good move forward. Yeah. And I've been part of it, doing it a lot now, working with my job and bits and pieces. And we're trying to get more people like yourself. Yeah. You're a rower. You're a rower, pal. Yeah, claim it.
And in your training programs, how many CrossFitters do you get? Like I did CrossFit pretty seriously for a year over in Australia, and we did what was that, 5K piece, and I think I managed to average 150 or something, which was nothing on you guys. That's fine. The people in the gym were like, Ryan, like how you doing these numbers? I was like, it's just the technique.
It is technique. Yeah, I watch CrossFitters doing it, and I'm like, oh, and yes, it's a power thing, being on the indoor rower. But at the end of the day, everything that you do is technique. Like you can get people that can throw a ball, or they can throw something, like a javelin, and they make it look easy, and you're like, far out. How'd you make, but it's just all about biomechanics and your firing sequence and everything. And so indoor rowing is, because generally if you're a bigger guy, right, you're moving power from A to B, from the start to finish. And if you can do that with your momentum, yes, you will. Generally, you've got an advantage. But that's not necessarily the fact if you're doing it in terms of sprints, or there's longer stuff or whatever. That doesn't so much mean that if you can get your technique right and you can get your rating right and all of this stuff. And some of the fastest people in the world, you wouldn't say are massive giants. Yes, there are, and there's the freaks out there, the Rob Waddells and everyone else that we used to like go, holy, but then you take someone like a Hamish Bond, who arguably not the biggest guy at 90 kgs when he's doing a test, and yet he's beating just about everybody else in the team except me. Yeah. And that's basically that's what it is.
Are you across the records?
I keep in touch with them because at one stage I had 4 of them.
Yeah.
I had the long distance one, so I had an hour, the half marathon, the 10K, and the 30 minute. Mm-hmm. And I think I've only got 1 left.
And these are the open records, right?
They're open records, yeah. There are, like, you've got every age group. Yeah. And I think that's the cool part about it as well, because there's from under 14 all the way through to 90 plus. Mm-hmm. And, you're sort of, there's brackets everywhere. But the other part about it as well, which rowing was always traditionally had a lightweight category and a heavyweight category. And so what happens is you've got this lightweight, heavyweight category, and so people can do that in those age groups as well. So there's not just, there's an overall person that's the fastest, but there's actually lightweight, heavyweight, male, female, all the way through. And so you look at it and you're like, man, there's a lot. There's a lot of people that can fill in those spaces, and that's what the motivation and everything's about. We can hear the old dog having a howl.
Yeah, he's trying to settle in, isn't he?
No, she's in there. She's like, I want to come out and have a hang around.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to late 90s. I needed one of these cell phones to start an Instagram page or something of the teenage New Zealand rower down in the bottom of New Zealand there, because I think of. I don't know if Sean Baker comes up in the records or not. He's going for the over 50 500 metre record. He's the carnival guy.
If I got my laptop out, because I run the New Zealand Indoor Rowing Association, so I have all the records, and so I can log into the system and I could tell you anyone's record. Yeah, we could change up a couple if we wanted to. I'll put you down for one.
I think I wrote that down at one time, but yeah.
Before
the internet.
Yeah, well, bloody hell.
Well, no, not quite before the internet, early internet.
Not quite, yeah. I think it is good. The whole internet thing has changed the landscape of stuff, right? Because we originally, I think if you look back on it, we came right through the age of social media while we were on rowing. And so, of course, we came from when there was basically nothing. We were making like websites and stuff, all the way through to then we started doing Facebook. It was starting to blow up just around like 2007, 2008, and then we started getting on Instagram. So Hamish and I were sort of right at that start of what it was, and then to what it's become now in terms of like all the pages and Snapchats and everything. I wouldn't want to. It's a tough one because I think nowadays if we were as successful as we were obviously back then, but we were doing it now, we would have to almost have a manager that could do something for us. I'm going to go move that dog.
Yeah, go for it.
She howling. Hey, Scouty, come here back. Come on. There you go. You can have the live. I've done enough interviews and stuff. It's really funny because you'll have. If I'm doing like a TV or even just an interview for a cart or anything like this, or even whatever, someone's like, "Oh, can we do a piece to camera about that?" And I can hear it. I can hear a truck coming down the road, and you'll hear the person with the mics and all this setup, and they like start looking around, and I'm like, I'll basically stop and I'll go, "Yeah, I can hear it as well," and they'll be like, thumbs up.
Mate, I was watching Rio this morning and the fucking sirens in the background. I was like, that wasn't good for the TV, was it? Right, so while we're on the erg, I mentioned Mark. He was fresh off winning the under 18.5 single at Māori. So he got New Zealand trial and he's up there, and this was his yarn. And I'd love to hear your version of events. So he was at Junior Trials 2008. They're up there in the training room. Rob, Mahi, Hamish, yourself, Carl, and James Dellinger all doing 40-minute erg pieces at 18. He reckons Rob and Mahi were doing 140s. And Mahi and Rob were just like looking at each other's screens and strokes. And then they heard a massive snap and saw James backflip off the erg, crash into the wall.
I remember that.
You got up and asked if he was okay. He held up the handle. Grabbed another erg and obviously finished off the session. Mark also reckons there was a bit of a folklore that Delhi used to break the foot stretches all the time. Is that true?
Yeah. It's when you look back at the people you rode with, James was he's a character because he wasn't necessarily the fastest trainer or the most like religious or strict, but his power was almost unmatched. I think when you look at the different people that are around and the skills that they brought to the table, when we our forte, especially in our four, was our finishing piece, and fuck man, we could absolutely lay it down. Like we did a sprint against the men's 8 in Munich before the World Championships in 2007. And we beat them on time. We were flying. It was a flying 250, and we just absolutely nailed it. And yeah, when James and I in the middle of the boat, because we were the most powerful, when we timed in together, it was all go. And I think that's it. You find the different people that can do it. And I would say on that day that the chain was probably already on its way out. I don't see you're more likely on a rowing machine, and to be fair, you're more likely on a rowing machine to break something when you're under full stress, which is like when you get down there and it's like, let's do 100 meters, and you just want to rip the shit out of it. That's when you're likely to break something because the chain sort of can't go back in fast enough and it's flapping around. You hear it like bang, 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 bang. And you're putting down probably 1,200, 1,500 watts, depending on how hard you're going. So that's more likely to snap it than it is when you're just doing a training piece. But I broke a couple over my time, and they're not fun because all of a sudden you've got your body into a position where you're like, I'm going to be putting on the power, and then it just bang, and of course, so you've got this, the body's got this tension, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and you're just like bang, and like you're like, oh fuck, and
Roll back on that
I hurt
slide.
well, yeah. I never came right off because I was like, because I switched the abs back into like thing and I was at the back, but I was like, oh, and I strained my obliques. And I was like, oh man, that hurt. But yeah, there's been I've seen some things over my time. But yeah, those trial periods and stuff, it was always fun watching the young people that would come around, and especially with the trials as they were. I came through that same system, but not as much as it is now, where everybody comes to Ārepa to do it. I think our first junior one we did in bloody Twizel. It was it was cold. It must have been in May or end of April.
Starting to get chilly.
Yeah, but nowadays everything's like, right, Ārepa for every age group. Let's do this. And so normally they were doing under 23s and elites at the same time, because there was sometimes you get a crossover. So you get an athlete that's like good enough to be an under 23. But we could probably sneak them into the system. And that's sort of where Hamish came in. He'd done one season under 23, so he must have still only been like 21 or I don't even know if he was 22. And so, but he came poking in because they were like, you're good enough to be in the team. Let's bypass you from the under 23s. And there's been quite a few people over that time that have done that.
Yeah. And so therefore, you guys are back in the field and just power through.
Yeah, it's funny. Over the period of time, I remember when we first had coaches, and just you watch what people did, and we just worked hard. But I wouldn't have said we worked smart.
Yeah.
And we had a guy, Chris Nielsen, who was New Zealand coach. He rode in the 4 and got a silver in 1972. They were the ones that got silver in the.
How did he lose his eye?
He put his head out of a train and got it caught on a mail hook.
Fucking nuts, eh?
Unbelievable, eh? And I thought he was taking the piss, and he's like, no, we were. And I was like, literally. But Chris was great because he came from this American system where they could only row for certain periods because NCAA rules and the weather and everything else. So they were very much into like how smooth you could be, and we learnt how to feel the boat.
Yeah.
He was the first coach that really taught us about motion and feel and everything else that allowed us to get an understanding of what we were trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. And it was something that we took all the way through, like going forward. And when we were in the 4, we like Carl Meyer, he just worked. We used to call him boot camp because he was so regimented and everything had to be done. He was in control because he was in the bow, so he talked everything. But it was just the way that we did it, get down here, this is our timing, he would take control. If you'd say he was the leader, yes, he was sort of the driving force of it. But everybody in the boat we were still sort of equal. But that 4 was our first taste of success, went over the first regatta we went to in the Netherlands, and bang, we won the World Cup, and we came flying from behind. The Dutch were out, and it's funny, I love watching the video again on YouTube because the commentator, with about 100 metres to go, he's like, "This is such a great thing, the Dutch," and he starts spelling their name off. No, but he goes, Heis Vermeulen and Matthias Belanga and blah, 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 and all these guys, we were really good friends with them. And then he goes, "Oh, but here come the Kiwis," bang, and we passed them on the line. And it was like we were a length and a half behind with about 150 metres to go. And we just came steamrolling through, bang, and we beat them. We just caught them off guard. They were trying to sprint, but they didn't have anywhere near the pace that we had created, and they just ran out of race. Mm. And so then that year, when we got third at Lucerne, and we broke the Britishers' winning streak. They'd won about 25 races in a row. And it was like, oh shit, this is all on. We beat them in the semi-final, and then in the final, everybody had sort of counteracted our wind. So everybody sort of pissed off, and then we couldn't quite get back on touch. And it was only about half a boat length between everybody, but they went early and we didn't, and we got caught off. But at the end of the day, we were like, we're third. We carry this momentum going, we're going to win a medal at World Champs. And then that was basically what happened that year. And I'll give you the real story. But that year we went and trained in this place called Lingeries in Munich, south of Munich, about an hour and 20 south of Munich. And we arrived, it's a beer festival.
Beer fest, yeah.
Fuck me. Oh my God. And it was just and we were treated like kings and everything. Just turn up to the beer hall and there's just beers in front of you. We didn't pay for a drink. And it went on for about 10 days. And I'll tell you what, I went to that beer tent every one of those 10 days. And we drank a lot of beer. And literally we'd go out And you know, it was. I would like to say that we were enjoying ourselves. I don't think like it was one night where we got pretty pissed, and it wasn't pretty the next day, but it was our rest day.
Did that start the meeting? One stein and be in bed in
Well,
10?
see, Carl did and Bondi would, but me and James would stay out, and a couple of the other boys from the 8 we'd light it up, man. When we would light it up hard, and there was a couple. We went to this little town. They had like a reciprocal one, and so there was like this afternoon fest, and there was like axe throwing and all this, and then this whole massive, like I shit you not, probably 50 meters, like half a bloody rugby thing outside, and there's just all these tables, and then there's just all these tents around the outside, and it's just food, bratwurst, pretzels, beer, like anything you want, and we're just bringing it. And of course we were some of the locals, so everybody knew who we were, and then blah blah blah. And then next one thing leads to another, and I was like, I don't know how we go home. You know, like it was, but that was fun. And yet the relaxation of it all, when we finally really got into the seriousness of it, we were still training hard. And I wouldn't say that it probably did affect our training just a little bit, just a little bit, just a tiny bit. But then when we finally got sorted in the build up to the Worlds, we were going well, we were fit, we were rowing well. We didn't do the best, like, pre-race, so we're 10 days out from any big competition. We do a race, full gas, like preparation, give us a time, we work back from that to warm up in the morning, to rest, at food, everything all the way through. And then we got to we did this piece on Munich, and Munich's not a fast course. We did like 6 minutes, and we thought it was really good. And then we got off, and Chris was like, "Oh, I don't know if it's fast enough. You know, wondering if we need to do it again." And Carl was like, "Nah." It was the first time I'd really heard him just be like, "No way." Like we did that pretty well, and I think that the time would reflect a good. We'd be in the mix. Would it have won us the race? I don't know. But then saying that, probably, because the water's cold, everything else, and that's the problem with rowing, is it's hard to dictate times because it's outdoor. You don't have any wind, it's slower. You have a little bit of wind, it's a shitload faster. You have a headwind, it's a shitload slower. You know, you can't rely on going out there saying we're going to hit this time today. You have to go by the conditions and by the people that are around you. And then when we got through the racing, you know, we won our heat comfortably, and then we won our semi without having to really unleash the beast. And then the final, I love watching that race again on YouTube. You know, we sort of,
especially with British commentators.
British commentators love it. Yeah, the Poms love it. You know, and it was just getting, and our whole race of that day was get into the field. Don't let anyone get away. And then when it comes time to open the afterburners, like, that's it. Because that was what we were good at. You know, we weren't going to lead from the start. We weren't going to lead through the middle. And if we did, I'd probably be concerned, because I'd be like, fuck, have we gone too early?
And blow out.
Well, yeah, we didn't know, because it's just not what our race plan was. You know, if I could see some sterns here, or just have a little peek and there was people there, I'm like, we're just fine. If you have, you know, you're not meant to be looking out. But if I look down, I'll be like, oh shit. And then it just played out exactly how it was. And, you know, we led the race for like 50 metres. But at the end of the day, right, when do you need to be leading? When you cross the finish line. Yeah. I think that was one thing.
You said that here in Cambridge.
Oh,
yeah. That kind of nearly beat you in the ass, didn't it?
that race. Yeah, when are we going to get onto that one? No, well, yeah, that first victory was amazing for us, because it sort of solidified the fact that we're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and it's a tough one, because even when we won the World Cup, I was like, yeah, actually we are pretty good. But when that World Championships is the thing that you're looking to get, you know, and to get that victory at the World Champs, you know, you're like, I'm a world champion. You know, like it's basically the number 2 of all the goals that you can achieve. You know, Olympics is number 1, but world champion, you know, there's a lot of people that have done some good stuff at the Olympics but never done a world champion, you know, and vice versa. So to tick off all the boxes on the way through, it was like, right, we did that, and then it was like beautiful. And then just that whole cycle, that whole year building into the Olympics, just nothing went right. Well, Hamish got hit by a truck while we were cycling, and then he sort of was off, and then we weren't, I don't know, I just can't really remember the summer. I know that I was training reasonably well, but we just never found, even when Hamish got back in the boat, it just felt different, you know, like, because he was building himself back. And then we got overseas, and we were, I don't think we had moved on, and I think everybody else had slightly moved on. And then we made the decision to go into Sydney to train because everyone was coming back to Karapiro. And I was a big fan. I was like, no way, man, we're going to get up to Beijing and it's going to be scorching hot. And we wanted to train in North Queensland, but we couldn't get a facility. So we went to Sydney. And we actually had some very good training there. And we were with Rob.
Was that at Penrith? Or?
Yeah, in Penrith. And we had Rob and Nathan Cohen in the double. So we were sort of training together, and we found some good stuff, and we were doing some good pieces. And the Aussies, I think we did some pieces against them, or we trained against them. They had good speed, and they'd been winning, stuff during the year. And then we got to the Olympics, and it was like, okay. And we literally just lost our heat, and I was like, we've actually got some speed. And then in our semi-final, it was an absolute humdinger. It's the only time that I'd say that we were in the final in the semi.
Race early.
Yeah. And literally I look at that race again and I look at the finish, and we were like 1.5 seconds behind the British. The Aussies got second, the French got third by like a canvas. And we were like fourth, and it was like full dejection, and I was like, the only thing that's going to save us is someone having an underweight boat or something.
Yeah. And
you're just going, oh my God, this is it. It's over. It's over. Right in that moment, it's done.
It's gone.
And yeah, and then of course, and then when we watched the final, and those three crews are way out in front, and then everyone else is way at the back. You're like, oh fuck, like what if?
Yeah.
And it was a weird one because even the Dutch who were in they were like the crew that year that had got second to us, third year to us. The year before, had been World Cup medalists, everything. They missed out on the final as well.
Yeah.
And the Italians missed out on the final. So everyone's like going, what the fuck happened? Because it was wild, like the results. But at the end of the day, the Olympics throws some real big spanners in the works, man. It always does. And that's after that experience, I was like, righto. And you take that on as like, this is how it's going to be going forward. Mm-hmm. Races just cannot take anything for granted. You've got to focus on this. You can't think too far ahead. And I think it was a very good learning curve for us, even though it was very negative. And I was like, I'm out. Like I'm going to take a break. Yeah. And part of me was like, I think I'm done because I'm like, I've come. I went from 5th in Athens, 7th in Beijing. Mm. I'm like, oh, well, that trajectory is not very good. But I was like, And then it was only the fact that Hamish came and knocked on the door and was like, let's jump in the Pair. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. But at the same time, we're right on the cusp of funding and everything, right? So I think we got some funding after we won the World Champs, but I don't think it was full. We hadn't quite got the PEGS funding from High Performance Sport. So it was basically make a decision of like, you're either going to get almost nothing and try and train full time. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like I just couldn't, and we were looking at the time, ex-wife now, we were looking at trying to buy a house and you can't. And then you go from like, I think we were about 30K a year down to about 10. And I'm like, oh, so I was like, I'm going to work. Like I'll work and I'll train if I can. And then we'll see where it goes. And then even when Hamish came and we were in, I didn't finish up like working until after the 2009 year.
Was that for Bob?
Yeah, for Bob, boat builder, because I was like, I need to work, and it wasn't until we won the World Champs in 2009, and then you get like, basically you come back from Karapiro and you're just waiting for that email to come through from the High Performance Sport and the manager going, hey, we've got PEGS funding for you next year and it starts next week, and you're just like, you beauty, and that the weight off your shoulders to go, oh man, we're going to get 50K, and it's paid out to you every 2 weeks, and you're just like, this is amazing, because you're just like, this means that I can be like, I've got a guaranteed income. I can go and do what I want. I can train full time, and that was the moment that we flicked, from being semi-professional, I think, into that real professional way that we approached everything, and that was just perfect. It was like, right, here we go, and it was great because like when we first got on the Pair together, Hamish and I, we knew we were good because we had some good speed and training. When you put Hamish and I on the Pair versus James and Carl, destroy them. When you put Carl and Hamish in the boat and me and James, it was very even.
Even Nathan commentating in Rio says, like, we knew these guys were going to be good.
Well, the funny story about it all is that Carl or James was injured in 2008 at the North Island Club Champs, which is it's like early February.
Yeah.
I think it's early February or when it used to be different than what like the Cambridge Town Cup or whatever, North Island Champs. And so Carl was in the, must have been James. And so Chris said to us, he goes, I want you and Bond to go race in the pier. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. So we went and raced in the pier and we won our heat. It was real quick. And Nathan and George were in the other heat and they won that. But we were about 6 seconds quicker. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when we raced them, we beat them by 9 seconds. We were gone. We got out and we were gone. And we lit it up, man. We went real fast. And I remember finishing and you just get this vibe around the boat park and even in the sheds and everyone's just like,
what did you do?
That was real quick. But it was fast. And I remember somebody, I can't remember who it was. Like Chris never really said anything, but I remember at the time, it might have been Rob or someone, he was like, you guys should go on the pier. And I was like, didn't even cross my mind, but hindsight, 100%, we should have been like, man, well, let's go on the pier. Because there's nothing set in stone until trials. And we would have had to have gone and raced and they would have raced us all differently. And then we would have literally screwed up the whole system because we would have said, well, we want to go on the pier, and Nathan and that would have said, well, I want to be, and then Carl would have said, well, I want to have a go as well, because it's all open slather, and it should be, right? Yeah. I'm a true. There's parts of me where if you've produced results, yes, you should get beneficial, preferential treatment. But then on the flip side, if there's nothing clear cut, fair game, open the board, create a selection policy that says you've got to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we're going to race on this date, bang, and you're going to be ready for it. Like it should be how it is. And then there's no, but this and but that. It's like, no, we fucking told you when you need to be ready.
So did you enjoy the Mahi Rob and the Mahi Robbie?
Yeah.
Rob and Robbie.
There's been some great ones like that.
Peter and Storm.
Yeah. Man, there's been some really good ones. The Robin Mahi one, I believe, was handled poorly because yes, Rob was fully entitled to have a go, but you had Mahi, who was a 3-time world champion.
Yeah.
You should have left him in place because he was 3-time world champion, right? And you should have left it. You should have said to Mahi, look, you've won 3 times in a row, pal. Go to Beijing. What do you need from us? Go talk to your coach, obviously Dick, and Dick would have worked him in perfectly to thing. Wouldn't have taken away from the illness, but I still think Mahi could have won by being sick. He wouldn't have had to race out as semi-full gas, and then in the final, he was lucky to get a medal. But I still think he could have won being sick because there's way, you can still, if you're sick, you can still get therapeutic exemptions to be on like a drip and all this sort of stuff. So he could have stayed home, could have done almost nothing, and then just gone race one race, bang, and he probably would have won it. But all the trial stuff did disrupt, but I don't think it did. But it was just this massive like media circus. Whereas you could have been like, awesome to have you back, Rob. Who should we find you a double with? But Rob was like, no, I want to go in the single. But they should have just left it for Mahi, and it's very similar with Hamish and I. Like, and I think they learned from it, right? That's one thing, right? It was learned from it, And even with say Emma, she's been one of the best single scullers in the world, but you've never had someone else that says, oh, I want to take her seat, because they're sort of like, well, you've proved your results, you've won these races, you've won nationals every year, everything, blah blah blah, all the way through. So here it is. And that's how I felt it should have been. And yeah, but at the end of the day, sport, people want to be into sport to get to the top level and to win. And if you've given someone a seat and said, this is it, it's just you, then how do you break in? And it's just that we haven't had there was no clear-cut criteria and any of that. And that's been the biggest issue, which we managed to get changed over the years with like Row New Zealand and stuff, was that we had these all fucking dinosaur bloody selectors.
I think they're still in rugby.
Oh, fucking hell. It really bugs me because you do these races or you do these erg times and you'd be like, oh, how did everyone go? We're not saying anything. And you'd be like, so we as athletes would walk around the room going, what'd you do? And I'll be like, 5:42. They'll be like, oh yeah, I did 5:52. Yeah, Paul. And so then in your head, you'd be like, oh, I remember Nathan did he did 54
Is that Cohen or?
Yeah, or whoever. You know?
Yeah.
But that was it. And it's like, put it on the fucking board, and then everybody will look at it and go, oh, I'm 10th. And then you'd be worried because you'd be like, shit, I know where I stand.
I've really got to be fast on the water.
Yeah, and then when you're on the water, you do seat races. And some of them would be tight, right? Because you're just swapping that one person and seeing what variable changes, seeing which boat goes quicker. Then you can say, no fucking results nowhere. And I was like, this is bullshit, you know, because you're going on your biasness. You may as well not even fucking seat race. It used to wind me up something wicked because I got tested a couple of times, right? But then once we were in the pier, we were the donkeys. We'd be like, let's do a time trial, Eric and Hamish go race. And used to piss Bondi off. I wasn't so much. But it was like we'd race against somebody else and they'd get a time check and they'd be like, okay, well, you're percentage-wise, you're 2% behind Eric and Hamish. Then the next day they'd do another race and it would be only 1, and they'd be like, well, that boat's probably quicker. So we were the donkeys for it. But the transparency needed to change, and it didn't change until 2016. Until after 2016, and we forced the hand and we got fucking rid of some of the selectors. We were like, they've got to go.
Yeah.
We finally got to change, and now you do a races and all the selection stuff's put on the board, and you'll be like, right, we changed Eric and Joe, whoever the fuck, and Eric won by 2 seconds in that one, or Joe won by 1 second, or whatever it is. And if somebody wins by half a second, guess who wins? That person. And you can't go, oh, but they will be better in August, because you'll be like, you told everybody in October when you put out selection policy that you needed to be ready for the first week in March when the trials are happening, that you've got to do a 2K and then seat racing and then we'll select crews. And it's even evolved further now where we're trying to do squads and then they can mix and match. And so yes, you've sort of gone back to that old school, like we'll see who's best when it comes to August. But you've still got this group of people that are certain in a group, say the men, to be like, we've got a pair, a spare pair, and a four. So we've got 8 guys training together in a squad. Someone gets injured, we can mix and match. You can start putting them in pairs all the time. You can put them in fours, different combinations. And then the coach can say, actually, they work really well together and they've got good speed. So then you can work on that, and then you can decide which boat you want to be the fastest. Like, where's your best opportunity to get in a medal? Because at the end of the day, the sport is there, and it's only funded by the medals that you win. And that's why we were historically so good in small boats, because it's like, let's put out pairs, doubles, singles. Oh, we got 5 medals with like 7 people or whatever the hell.
Efficiency.
And so you're like, oh, that's real good. You know, rather than going, oh, let's put an 8 out on the water and we win 1 medal. And that's what I think's lost on a lot of people. Well, and I think some people know it. Most sports people will probably understand it. But the general public wouldn't understand and be like, well, why can't we put out an 8 all the time? It's like, well, you're going to sink nearly $1 million into a men's and women's program.
Yeah, I think Sean telling about going to this, last chance regatta is like, yeah, that was expensive.
And it was just lucky that they had Sean Colgan, who's a very, very passionate rowing supporter.
Yeah.
Who was like, I'll help fund it. Otherwise, no way we were getting any 8s to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like, yes, probably the women, because they had already proved their worth, but not the men. And unless Sean and a few other people stumped up with some cash, they weren't going anywhere. And that's the problem, because they weren't even getting funded. So how are you meant to? You got effectively 11 guys. No, 12, because you got the coxswain and Spears and everyone. And then they've got to get funded to do it, because otherwise you're making them do it on nothing. So what are you expecting? So maybe say 20 grand for 6 months, and then the travel overseas. You got 12 people traveling. Jesus, it's massive money, and that's the problem with sport, is it's expensive. It is expensive to go over and do these events.
Yeah. Is this your favourite story?
Or probably.
Yeah,
the swan.
The swan.
Oh.
Everybody asks for stories of it comes to the swan. I'm like, do you have another story?
My girlfriend does not like that picture at all, because she loves animals, and I was like, well, we didn't hurt the swan.
It went back.
We did put it back.
Hissed and bit a few people.
Yeah, well, see, and I think this is why I've always been a bit of a larrikin. I was always the class clown.
Jade said you're up across the Redeemer and you saw a snake, and then you poked him in the back. And you got snake and put the shits up himself.
No, there was no snake. I was winding him up. That one with the swan, yeah. We were in Lucerne in Switzerland, and of course, After the third World Cup, most of the countries stay. Everyone gets on the beers at this place called Mr. Pickwick's. And I was always like, I just loved getting on the beers and having fun, you know. And because it's Europe, you could go to the train station and buy cheap piss, and then you go outside and you'd sit by like the fountain.
Do they have like drinking laws in public?
Well,
public carry stuff?
I don't know, but I think it's like we were sitting outside. There's like a restaurant.
Don't be disorderly.
Yeah, I don't know, but you'd preload obviously because bloody Switzerland's so expensive. I got another story to tell you about Switzerland too. I could get arrested by, but never mind. We'll cross that bridge if it happens.
You're fraud.
Yeah, the fraud. But then we were just at the pub, and these Canadian guys, and there's a guy that looks like me. He's this blonde-haired guy. He had the mo, everything, and his name was Adam from Canada. And so we were good mates because we were like, hey, bro, you know, we would like say we're brothers, and everyone loved it. And we were just sitting there, and there was all these swans around. I said, I reckon we could catch one. And he goes, should we do it? And I was like, yeah, let's go. So you go up, sort of, we're on the canal piece that goes down to the river, but you just literally walk up the road like 500 metres, and there's like all these boats parked in there, and there were swans everywhere. And I was like, I'll jump this one, you go that one, we'll corner it in here and we'll grab it. They're fucking heavy, eh? The thing, they probably weigh...
I've taken down a turkey before.
They probably weigh close to like a middle-sized dog, you know, like close to 20 kgs, I reckon. Yeah, well, they are. And of course, and then it's trying to fucking peck you, and it's trying to flap its wings, and it's wet, or it's not wet, but it's like stinky, and it's shitting itself when we're doing it. And so we thought it was funny, and like no harm done, right? And I wouldn't do it if I thought there was going to be harm to the poor old animal. But we got it, and we just like whatever. But then we walked it back to the pub. And then, of course, a few people saw us and were like, oh my God. Here's Adam and I walking this pub in, and we were like going like this, going, shh, like behind this thing. We brought it behind this girl, this American girl, and we put its head like this, and it just came up. And, of course, everyone's standing behind her like going, oh, my God. And it came and she freaked out.
And you chose an American too, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and then, of course, everyone was coming up and passing it. And then literally we were there probably a minute, 2 minutes, and then the lady from the bar just goes, put it down. And we were like, yeah, sorry. And so then we went, put it down.
Was she British or Irish?
Nah, she might have been Irish. No, I don't know, she could have been Swiss. But yeah. But there's a few stories like that. But, you know, I think the one there's a couple of good things that we've had with rowing. If you look back at sports and the problems that they've had in their drinking culture, does rowing have a problem with their drinking culture? Probably. You know, look, because we all love getting on the beers and everyone's fit, and so you get drunk pretty quickly. But I feel like we've always had, I've done it with a couple of people. Someone takes one for the team. Yeah. Someone gets too drunk, I'll take them home. Yeah. I've taken people home. I'll be like, righto, I'm not like, because I wasn't like, you know, hitting it hard, I'll take you home. And it's happened very, should I say, often? Yeah, probably. But we've never had any incidents where people have got hurt, or there's been shit that's happened that's managed to find its way back to the media and all of that, you know, like all of these bloody cycling and swimming issues that they had over time. And, you know, you could arguably say rugby's been bad in it as well. So there's no alcohol policy, right? It's just like if you have to put in an alcohol policy, you've got a problem. Whereas I feel like for whatever reason, rowing's never got to that stage because we've just, the team's probably not big enough. I don't know if there's a few people that I wouldn't say arguably are like, let's fucking hit it hard. You know, like I was always like, let's go. You know, and when we had, you know, when we won the world champs and we were at the beer hall, oh shit, it was wild. But you know what I mean? And so we've never had massive issues. Yeah. And so we've always kept it pretty subdued. And to be fair, I think because Dick Tonks was part of the program, he was a massive hater of everyone getting lit up. Mm-hmm. So, of course, a lot of the girls just wouldn't even do it. So there was always people around to make sure that things, you know, just never got out of hand. And it never did get out of hand. Yeah. You know, so I think, you know, it's a definite learning curve. And even nowadays, I think the culture, all the cultures have changed a lot. But I was always a fan of, you know, work hard, play hard. You know, because at the end of the day, you're doing this for fun, yeah, and you really enjoy it. But if you're having to your opportunity cost, because I don't use the word sacrifice, if the opportunity cost is to cut out all the good things that you like doing, is it worth doing it? You know, and there's a time and a place where you need to cut it out. But if you're 2 months out from like a massive event and you just want to like get on the beers, you've got 2 days off, what's the point? Now, if you slip over and you break your leg, there's your fucking problem.
There's a problem.
So that's what I mean, is nothing, we've never had anything go seriously wrong, which has caused that to happen. So, yeah.
Eight people, there's a lot of things that can be at play, but did they stiff themselves for Rio?
Who's that?
The 8.
Well, see, they did. And there was, that's one, because when we were training the year before, and we had all these young guys,
Mike told me the story about sleeping over on the train station.
Yep. So we had a really good team, right? And we had a good culture because we had all these young people come through, and it was a big team, right? We had men's and women's 8s, everyone. We had quads. It would have been the biggest numbers we'd ever had on team. And we trained in Sursee in Switzerland, and everyone had a bit of fun, everyone had a bit of fun. And, a few of the boys took it, well, they didn't take it too far. It was just the fact that they went into town to this festival, whatever, and then, of course, they didn't realise that the last train finished at thing. And they were just too cheap to go, shit, boys, we're gonna have to drop 120 Swiss francs to get home in a taxi. Mm-hmm. They should have, but they didn't. And then they slept in the train station. Then, of course, when they're laughing about it and the management finds out, they're like, well, that's stupid, boys. You shouldn't be doing this. So if they'd got home, no one would have fucking known any different. They would have said, man, we had to drop.
Mike said they nearly got home, but the manager's coming out with the van.
Exactly. And that was the problem. And so for some bizarre, and they got fourth, they got pipped in the last 150 metres and missed out on a medal. And so then they're like, right, we need to really focus. And then they were like, we're not drinking this year. And I was like, I don't know if that's wise. And they were like, nah, we're going to be real focused. And I said, yeah, but you can still be focused and still do the things that you enjoy. No, we're not doing it. And then, man, when they were overseas, you could see the fucking tension. Man, you'd walk in anywhere and the tension was just... And it was like, oh, man, this is gnarly. And that was the issue, right? And that's always one philosophy that I had, is that what I said before, if you're taking away what you really enjoy and the fun and enjoyment and the bits and pieces that make you the person that you are, if that starts getting peeled back and you're now this super stressed and focused person, and how do you relax, and what did you used to do? You get home and go, man, it's been a long week, bang, have a beer, right? Now you've taken that out of the equation, what's going to happen? People are going to get in your face, the small things, you're going to start to sweat, you don't have a good piece on the water, someone's pissing you off because they're late, and you're just like, and you're getting really tense, rather than if everyone had just gone, let's just chill out, boys, let's have a few beers.
Fun together.
Because they do now, and they did before, and then they just thought that the Olympics meant that you couldn't do what you were doing. And I urged them a lot of times to be like, I think you need to rethink what you're doing, but they didn't. And then, of course, it was never going to go, and they did. They worked themselves up into this massive thing, and then, they still made the final, which is fine, but they were just never going to go to where they needed to go because the training period had not been enjoyable for them. They'd been too stressed about it. And yes, the Olympics and working into it and trying to think about the outcomes when, you shouldn't be, you should be thinking about the process, just got way too much for them. And bang, there they go. And, and I think, from that point, a lot of them just lost a bit of faith, and they were like, I don't want to do this again. And, and they chopped and changed a bit and everything. And then it was only really when they got in those last couple of years to bring it back together that it actually worked well.
Very well.
Yeah. Oh, mate, it was...
Where were you?
Where was I? Well, funny story. Hamish came around. I had bought a place in Vogel Street in Cambridge. Yeah. This old 50s.
Oh, this is why you're not over there.
Yeah. and he arrived, and I've got my chainsaw out. I'm cutting this fence down, and he's got his daughter on the bike, and he arrives and blah blah blah, and he's like, oh, it's a nice place. And I was like, yeah, well, because that year I'd split with my wife, and we were looking at doing different things. I was like, well, I'm going to come back into town with Zach and find a place and renovate it and whatever else. So we'd sold up everything to do, and I was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And so Hamish arrived after World Champs, about a week after, and he goes, I want you back in the 8. And I was like, oh, bro.
Was Mahi there at that stage?
No, because Mahi had been in the boat that year.
Okay, yeah.
But of course, he was only in there because he didn't make the single.
Yeah.
And then he sort of was like, I want to go in the 8. And we talked about it, and Bondi was like, he won't fit in well enough with what we need, because he does have different needs. And I said, well, so do you, so do I. And I said, well, because we were only training like once a day, you know, and I said, you're going to have to get back in the gym, you're going to have to do all of this and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, well, I understand that. And I was like, well, okay. And then he goes, like, if you could come and just train like we used to and show these guys what needs to happen, because they didn't quite understand the level of intensity, I think, that you needed to get to be good or be consistent.
The existing 8.
Yeah. And so, of course, Bondi's like, you know, you see them on the ergs and some of them will just stop because they're not feeling it and all of this. And he's like, and I'm like, oh, fuck, okay.
It's like big picture stuff.
Well, yeah, just you know, or they'll sit on there and they'll go, I feel tired today, so I'm not going to push it. And Bondi's like, and so it was getting on his nerves because he's like, it doesn't matter how you feel, you've just got to do what you can that day. And look at your heart rates. If your heart rate's a bit high, who cares? You know, don't moan and bitch about it. Yes, if you're injured, you know, take your thing. So he was just trying to get them to understand what needed to happen. And so we had a good conversation about it. And then I thought about it, and I did all my due diligence. I contacted my physiologist, Dan Plews, and I said, do you think...
Oh, you're very Dan. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I said, do you think you can get me back to fitness? And he's like, I'll get you close, but you won't get back to it. And I was like, what do you reckon? He's like, well, I'll probably get you, you know, 548s or something like this on the erg. And I was like, is that enough to get me there? And then I was like, but I'm working all these opportunities. I'm not going to have to sack all of this, blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, oh, and in the end, I was like, no way I can do it. You know, my boy, you know, because he's autistic and we were, you know, doing shared custody. I'm like, shit, I'm going to have to get my parents here. I'm going to have to get... the logistics of it just didn't work out. And I said to him, but I'll help when I can. And sort of talked to a few of the boys like Mike and everyone in the 8 and just getting them to understand, and then also talking to Bondi and saying, like, you need to realise that you're now on an 8s program, you're not like Eric and Hamish. So you're just another person. But yes, you can drive the thing. And I used to say to Mike and that, I'd be like, he just wants respect because he's a double Olympic gold medalist and 8-time world champ. And I'm like, he knows what needs to be done. Exactly. And I'm like, so when he's sitting there pumping an erg yard, go with him.
Yeah.
Try and hold on to him, or sort of split behind him, or get in front of him and fucking beat him. And I said, and then you'll get respect because he'll be like, yep, that's what you need to do to get to that level. So I think they found a reasonably good happy medium in that period of training. And then the rest of it just came down to the belief of how they needed to do it, right? And that's probably the biggest thing is buying. You know, I'm sure it's the same for rugby, right? In a culture, you know, you get Foster and he's like, this is how we're going to do it, right? We want to make sure that we keep it up front for a certain period and then we flick it wide, or we need to make sure we do this and then this. And so everybody's on the same page. So you're not just one ruck flicking it out. You know, there's always a play that you're doing. And rowing's no different, where it's like in our training, we really have to focus on this, do this, and then we whatever. And so even when you're training, it's like the first few days you've got to be really onto it, and then let's really test it on a Wednesday. Thursday, Friday don't necessarily matter, but then on Saturday we were going to fucking nail it again. And it may not seem that way, but that's how your culture has to get. And so when they finally got the culture right, and in terms of the way that you needed to do the stroke, you know, Hamish and I really did revolutionise a lot about the rowing stroke. Not to blow my own trumpet, but what used to happen is that the philosophy of rowing was about getting off the back quick and then slowing down into the front so that you had like minimal effect on the speed of the boat. And then over our time, we were listening to this guy, Drew Gin from Australia, who was getting frustrated about the same sort of thing. And we had sort of come to a conclusion about a few things while we were doing it. And he was like, I think we're doing it all wrong. And so we started having more patience around the back and then sort of having quite a little bit more speed coming into the front.
You guys didn't really lean back at the finish?
Not as much, no. And that's because of Pair you can't, because you don't have as much power. But everything's about not slowing the boat down, right? And that's the biggest thing is when you slow the boat down, when you watch a race, right, and you see Hamish and I just moving away from everyone, we're only going faster than them, but we are still slowing down. In the bigger picture, our speed goes from fast in the first 500, then it slows down again, and then whatever you got at the finish, you fucking go for it. But we were slowing down by 2 seconds when everyone's slowing by 3, and then in the next one, we would try and slow down by nothing or 1, and they'd slow down by another 2 or 3. So now we're 4 seconds in front. So you're looking at us going, oh, these guys have made a massive move through the middle 1,000. We're like, no, we just didn't slow down as much as everybody else. So they started doing that in the 8 and getting the understanding of that. And it's what I try and do on the indoor row machine. It's like teaching people that when you get the biomechanics of your legs driving the body backwards rather than your legs doing the power and then getting slightly disjointed and then trying to like flick your body through, when you get that open out, think about it like, you're
power clean or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're right. You go to the gym and you know that a power clean, what happens is your legs have to start, but then once you've got this connection through your hips and you start hinging, then that body opens out straight and you create that power, and then the bar comes up and it floats around it and you catch under it, right?
Yeah.
Rowing's no different. It's just same horizontal. Now, it's very difficult to get yourself into that position and to work on it and get that time and time again. That's why you do hundreds of thousands or millions of strokes a year to get to that point. But that's what it is. And so when the 8 finally started getting it and you watch them and they're just swinging their bodies together and there's minimal effect on the boat and the boat just starts creeping out in front of everybody else, they're not adding any speed. They were just not slowing down as much as the other. You could see the speed. I've got the times from it, right? Everybody else slowed down between that second and third 500,
it was unreal movement.
We didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't slow down. We didn't slow down a bloody single second, and that's why we got that half a second lead. And then, of course, it was just like sprint home, and they did, and that's what happened. Yeah, and I was commentating. I was with Tony Street and Wendy Petrie actually on the day.
Were you guys here or you?
No, I was up at TVNZ doing stuff, and I was watching it, and I was just like, once I got out front, I was like, we were watching it on the TV, so we weren't live. I was like, we're gonna fucking win, and Tony's like, you reckon? I was like, we're gonna win, and I was like, they're not gonna lose from here. And then when they got through the 500, I was like, this is ours, and they were like going, no way. I was like, fuck, we're gonna win, and it was just wild. Probably the best part about it was that I'd been on to Ladbrokes when they were paying 18 to 1. I put $100 on them. So it was real fun because I know. I don't know if that's insider information, but the TAB didn't do any betting.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh fuck. And so then I was like, we'll find someone, and you can go Betfair and whatever, but the British ones are quite hard to get into, because you were out of town. But the Aussie one was easy. So I was like, you just got to register your license or your passport and all this sort of stuff. So I put some cash in there, and then I won a couple of multis because I was like, Emma was paying like 5 to 1 or 6 to 1, whatever she was, because she hadn't gone. The Russian chick had gone Belarusian, or whoever she was. She'd gone pretty well this season, and I knew the Croatians going to win. I was like, I had my money on Kerry and Grace, and then there was the 8, and the 8 was just like I really hope you guys do well, and I had them coming 3rd or 4th. After the first race when the Dutch beat them, I was like meh, and then in the repechage they won it just, and I was like, oh okay, they've got a potential to win a medal. But they were still behind most of the way, and they sort of come through. And of course, all that they were clear of everyone else. So I was like, oh, they might get there. And I was messaging Hamish, and he's like, oh, we actually started coming right. It's pretty good. We got a sniff at a medal. So he had him a sniff at a medal. Wasn't like he's like, you're going to win. And then of course, bang, they won. So of course, I had his multis on all these people, and then I ended up getting about $3,500. I was like, beauty.
And did you duck down to the cloud and spend it all?
No, cashed it out. I was like, thanks, boys. And then they all came back, and we went to 5 Stags in Leamington. And I was like, hey, boys, and I bought like about 6 pitchers of beer. And so we were all like, it was probably November or December by the time, most of them had come back and finished all their stuff. And so we were having a few beers and stuff. And then I went in the pokies and won a jackpot. And so then I came back out, and we kept going.
Was that the same night that a bunch of blokes tried to boat race you, and you told them that they should have challenged you on an erga of the water? Probably. That's another JW story.
There's a few of those around, pal.
Oh, nice. What was it like getting used to walking the boat down on a public lake and having boobs everywhere? We had a couple of those overseas. Not too many. The problem with the nudie bars, or even just people like on the beaches. Beaches.
Well, they're not really even beaches. It's just sort of like, they're beached areas on lakes, right? But most of them are all old. It's not like you're turning up to this and they're all 20s and 30s, and I'll go 40, 50s, and even then I'll be like, oh, that's pretty good. But no, most of the time they're all old men and stuff, and even the girls. I remember one time because we used to train against the women's quite a lot. They'd be like, did you see that guy at the point? He's just standing there with his dick out. I'd be like, yeah. But no, Look, yeah, I've never took too much notice. To be fair, like when you're overseas, you're trying to stay as focused as you can, even though there's all this stuff going around. But at the end of the day, it's different cultures, and that's the whole cool thing about being overseas. And I say it a lot when I do like my public speaking and bits and pieces. Is I've always been a massive supporter, of opportunity cost over sacrifice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll always hear it, and everybody uses the word sacrifice, and I think it's almost something that we should fucking get rid of, because it's a stupid terminology. Because everything that you do, right, your opportunity cost to come in here today to do this is you could be going playing golf, or you could be doing something else, right? It's an opportunity cost, not a sacrifice, really, when you think about it. When you think about, I've got to work 12-hour days because I run a business, and you're like, but I sacrifice time with my kids. You're like, it's not sacrifice, it's an opportunity cost. Like when you think about sacrifices all the time, if there is things you have to sacrifice because you're like, fuck, I really don't want to be here, make a change. That's the problem, is the sacrifice when it comes in is that you don't want to be doing this, you'd rather be doing that. Okay, and that's the problem. And so, but if you look at it as like, okay, well, this actually just is an opportunity cost because this is what I have to do, but I really want to be doing that, but I want to do this. I have to do this because that's the whole thing. And I feel like when I try and tell athletes or business people, I'm like, you've got to think about everything as these opportunity costs. Like it has to. If you look at it in that negative connotation, it's always going to be like, man, I don't want to be here. You're going to be negative from the outset. Rather than being like, no, look, it's fine. I've got to do 4 hours of work here on a Friday or a Saturday, and then I can piss off and do something else. It's fine. You're right. It's the opportunity cost of what you need to do to get something finished or whatever. And that's always what I looked at it in terms of things. Did I miss a lot of stuff with family, friends, weddings? Yeah, opportunity cost. Whatever. It had to happen because if I wanted to be the best, if I'd gone to those, would it have affected me? Don't know. Maybe not. But those are the questions that you have to ask yourself while you're doing it, and that's why I've always been an avid fan of being opportunity cost over sacrifice. Think about it in that way. It's a way better mentality and thought process and thinking of it like that.
Is it a case of like you are wanting to be the 1%, so you've got to do like what 1% do? Like the amount of I played rugby, was in some 7 squads, played for Hotapu most of the time in the development team. It's like, you want to be in the Premier team, you want to be in a program, you want to, then like most New Zealanders, you want to be an All Black. But
it is. I think personally, I feel like I stumbled across it.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like you stumble into it.
You got to see 3 different pathways too, right?
Well, yeah, but it's like one. I feel like when we were in the, it was when Rob was there and a few, it must have been early. It was quite early. You're watching these guys that are in the program, and you're watching them do their fitness training, and you're watching them on the erg, and you're watching them on in the weights room, and then you're watching them on the water, right? And you're like, oh, I'm starting to get closer to you because you're going to have a divide. And then all of a sudden you start closing that divide. Then all of a sudden you're an equal, and then you're out on the water and you do a race and you beat them, or you're in pieces on the lake and you're like, oh, we beat so and so in that pen, or you're in the single and you're like, oh shit, I'm getting quicker. And it's a realization. And so it doesn't matter what sport, right? Take rugby, you're going to do Broncos or something, right? And you're like, I want to be in this position, and someone else is in this position at the moment, and they beat you by fucking full length, and you'll be like, well, I'm not quick enough.
Yeah,
I'm not fit enough.
I've heard you talk about Richard McCaw. You watch him like do a positive line. You're like, how the fuck did he know that the ruck was going to end up there?
A lot of that stuff comes from learning and bits and pieces, which is absolutely fine. But generally, most times you get selected into events by things that you can categorise and justify in terms of numbers and statistics, right? Yeah. Yes, there needs to be a little bit of magic. Rugby's different, yes, because you've got to be able to see lines and be like, I can see all of those guys shifting that way, or I can see them coming in, and I can see that we don't have enough people out there, so the halfback's probably going to be like, I'm not going that way, I'm going to cut back into the forwards. So you've got to have that understanding of that. But at the end of the day, most of it's around no missed tackles, none of this, and in training it's about doing it properly, no drop balls, this and this and this. So the better you get at those statistics, and all of a sudden you're better, right? And that's as simple as it goes. And it's just understanding that. And I think I understood that. I didn't understand that early enough. And then I started realising it when I started becoming like faster on the erg. And then next minute I'm like, oh, I'm the third fastest in the team. And I'm like, oh shit, that's real good. You know, and then it's like, but my water's not good enough. I'm not good enough on the water. And then my gym, I'm sort of mediocre. I'm in the middle. So you're like, oh, okay, so that needs to improve. And then I need to get the technique right out on the water. And then all of a sudden you start doing races against people and they'll do some pairs matrix. And then all of a sudden you're the second fastest on bow side and you're like, right, I'm on the top boat. You know, and it's getting that understanding over that period of time and then moving on from that, you know, and just looking at you literally just got to look at the people in front of you and emulate what they're doing, try and slightly adjust it and then see if that makes you into the person that you can be going forward.
How do we put time into perspective? Because like, you guys, third Olympics, the 8, 10 or 11 years.
Oh yeah,
you know,
it's the getting an Olympic gold medal is a statistical anomaly.
Yeah,
right. You do the math, you do the figures, you do everything all the way down the chart, and it's just stupid. Right?
What are you doing it for?
Well, yeah, and that's it. But of course, you're like, I want to be the best in the country, so I want to win it with my club, whatever. Yeah. Or then you want to be, then you're like, oh, then I want to get in a team and I want to go to the world champs and I want to see how good I can be with the rest of the world. Okay, shit, that's there. Yeah, cool. And then you go, then there's only a certain number of places for the Olympics. Then you got to make it not only in your team, but then get to the Olympics and then actually have a go at winning the Olympics. Is like point 0.00000, you know, like, and it's wild. It is absolutely wild, and that's what fascinated me when we started getting quite statistical about all our stuff. That you get all these nerds that do all the figures, and you're like, can you give me this stat? And they'll be like, there's 7 billion people, and there's X number that maybe row and everything else, and that's it. Oh, Zachy boy,
here he goes.
Yeah, I got the boy home again. He's going to make a mess over there in the corner.
It's all good. So, what was I going to say? How did you end up in Lincoln?
I literally went down to Lincoln University for to do ag science.
Yeah.
And I left school, went down, and then just pissed it up for about 3 months, and then and because I was a young school leaver, like I was 17 when I left school.
Where'd you live?
Pukekohe.
No, when you were in
I was in the halls, yeah, and so yeah, I basically I left home. I'm like, I'm out of here. Let's go. Let's light it up, have a bit of fun, and then I made the junior team that year because I was a young age group. Yeah. So the juniors it's the year you turn 18. So I'd already left school, was at university, and then she and basically that was the situation.
Yeah.
So.
You're a long way from Kerr's Reach.
It was, and that's probably was the problem, was that I got to a point where I was having to travel like half an hour, 40 minutes every day to get to the Reach, and I was like, shit. And then I made the junior team, and then I came back, and then when I was there, I was like, okay. And then the coach was like, oh, you know, I think you can make the premier team this year and you could do this. And I was like, okay, well, that's pretty cool. And then I sort of was like, actually, I think I'll just put because I think I passed all but one of my papers. The dog's out. Dog's out. She happy now. She won't be howling in the room. and I was like, you know, I want to give Ryan a go, so I can always come back to this. And so, you know, there's some credits probably still sitting there for all I know. And that was the situation. And so then got into that position, and it was just like, right, I'm going to do this, and it just one thing led to another, and then I was an 18-year-old winning the Premier 8, and it was just like, wow, you know, and that was the start of sort of the journey, because I knew, okay, I'm good enough. I think I had the third fastest erg time in the team. I think I just broke 6 minutes, you know, and everyone was like, holy shit, how does this go back 6 minutes? 18. And then it was just a process from there forward going, and then it did open the doors a little bit, because then it's like, oh, we want you to come to Ārepa. We did this like Youth Olympics thing. We went to Aussie and raced against all these Aussie state crews and won a few golds over there. So it was just like this taste of like, even though our junior year was worse shit, we were terrible. We got last.
Where'd you go for that?
Croatia, Zagreb, Croatia. we did get last, but at the end of the day, it was like, oh, it doesn't matter. Work on it, see where we can go, and then and it's sort of, it is part of the process. And so it was still very disjointed, I should say, with like the teams. And it wasn't until later on that we started getting into a point where everything starts mixing together in terms of your pathway. There was no pathway. It was, we started as this academy thing in 2001, and then it slowly evolved to get more people involved. And then they were like, oh, let's get some like these regional performance centers, which I think kicked in around 2007, maybe 2008. And then, of course, we moved into the high-performance building in Ārepa in 2009.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, we haven't been there for that long. Well, we have now because, it's 2024. But we haven't been there that long, really, when you look at the scheme of things in terms of the sport, that we've only really been this centralised high-performance program in a really good facility and everything since sort of 09, 010, so sort of 14 years, which you argue to say is only 3 cycles. So when you look at it, the statistics of gold medals, and most people were taking at least 2 Olympics to get to a point where they're like in the hunt. You're like, well, the people that were there, let's say 8 years ago, should theoretically be in a position this year to be able to get through to Paris and win those medals. And that's what it takes, right? It's very seldom that you get people going to their first Olympics and they win or get medals. Yes, there are people, but if you look around the world, and I think the rowing statistic is, it's the average age of an Olympic gold medalist is 30. You start thinking about it going, yeah, I can see it. And I can see it. I can see all the people that have won gold medals over the time. Yes, there's been some people early age, but then a lot of them have been, late 20s, early 30s, even, later 30s that have been winning gold. And you're like, there's your average. Yeah. You give them a go if you want. We'll be right. We don't mind the background noise. It's all part. Honestly, this place is the house is great, and it's always going to get messy, and there's always people around. Yeah. There's always something going on in the villa. Yeah. Give them a whirl. See if you can get a haircut for them. It's all part of the content.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I guess then you said 2009. You and Bondi get in the pair. You guys started winning, eh?
Yep. It was. I still remember. It's funny when you talk. People go, "Oh, can you remember your most memorable races?" And one of them was the very first race we had in the pair. And what happened was we got overseas, and 2 of the guys, Andy and Pete, who ended up having this really awesome rivalry with.
It's Trix Hodge and Reed, right?
Yeah, Andy and Pete. We turned up overseas, and of course they had won the first World Cup, and they've come out of a gold medal winning British 4 that won the Olympics in Beijing, and so.
Was that with Reed Grave as well?
No. So he finished 2000. Right. But they won the year that we bombed out, and we'd beaten them a year before at Munich. And so all of a sudden you got these guys who are, and they're the best in their program. And I think that's the one thing. They were the best, right? They're Great British program, most funded, you name it. Boys are in there. And they're probably, I think they were like maybe 1 and 2, 1 and 3 on the erg. Strong, fit. You put them in the pair and they just beat everybody else. So they were their top 2 guys in the pair. And so we turned up. They've won the World Cup in Banyoles in Spain, and then we turn up to Munich. And our very first race, we're in the heat against them. And I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. And so, of course, all we're thinking about is shit, we're in the pair. We've got to focus on the training and everything else. You're right, Zacko? You gave a good time over there. And so what happened was we turned up, got on the start line, and I remember the race vividly because I do all the calling in the boat just because of the way that we sit. And we got out and we were basically we probably had half a length on them, and then they came back in the second 5. And then we really held them strong in the third 5, and we had probably about a seat, so I could look across and I knew that we were in front. And then just about 600 metres to go, we always had this call to commit and just really hold our pace. And we started moving away. And then we kept going. And I was like, wow, okay. And then we got like a length lead with must have been about 300 metres to go. And I remember both of them at one point, I must have caught their eye on a couple of strokes. Pete turned around, and then I saw Andy's head turn around. And then they just buttoned off because it was a heat. So it was first through to the final. Everyone else was going to have to go to another race. So there's no point, like, they wouldn't have got back through us. And I probably would have done the same. If we were in their position, I would have been like, there's no point. Like, we're going to burn gas when we don't need to. So then, of course, everyone's like, oh, shit, the Kiwis beat British. And, of course, they've been talked up as being the next Pinson and Redgrave, 100%, right? They were like, these guys are going to win everything. And then, so we were like, okay, great race. And then when we got in the final, I said to Bondi, right, let's really go out for it. And we had nearly 5-second lead at the first 500. We were gone. We were like, catch you later. And then we moved out to about 6.5 seconds. And then we just we didn't do anything in the second 1,000. We just sort of cruised it. And we probably put a bit of gas in that first K to go fast. And so just held the pace on. And I remember coming through the 500 to go. And they were so far back. And you could see them trying to sprint it. And they're lifting the rate. And then it was only about 100 metres to go that I said to Bondi, oh, they're coming, we better lift it. And so we sort of wound it up a bit. So they closed the gap right back down on us, but we just did nothing. Yeah. And it was just like, we're here. Like, this is going to be great. And that basically started this rivalry between us and Pete and Andy that went on for the next for the 3 years. And it was an epic rivalry, man, because we met them. We met them, and to be fair, and you're probably going to ask this question, so I'll get onto it anyway. In the Ārepa 2010 World Champs, we met them in the semi-final, and we had beaten them all year. We beat them every race that we raced. We went to all 3 World Cups, and we beat them in every single one. The first one in Bled, Bondi had a bit of a rib issue, and we still won it, and then he was out of the boat. And then we went back to Munich, and we'd only been training for like 4 days, and literally only because Dick was like, you might as well fucking go home if you're not going to rain. And I was like, oh, shut up. And so we still won that. And then we went on to Lucerne and we put more distance on them. And so we're working into World Champs and we're like, we're the best, we should win, everything else. We met them in the semi-final. Same thing that has happened previously, where we're sort of level pegging and then we push out a little bit and then they gave up. And it was only because they were waiting for the final, obviously, because they were going to qualify. And then, of course, the final rolls around and still to this day, and I think it's a good mistake, but because it taught us, and I don't think we would have probably done what we did if this hadn't happened. And in that race, I remember when we were talking about it before, we were just like, we'll just track the British, we'll just see what they're doing, we'll counter, we'll do everything. So we never went into that race going, let's fucking take the scruff, let's take this ball by scruff of neck and just go. And our whole race plan was dictated on where the British were and what they were going to do, because they were the only ones we really needed to beat. Because we knew we were probably pretty much going to beat everyone else. Like, we still had to race them and we still, going to focus. But we just was like, whatever the British do, listen, the first 500, oh, they're there. And then we moved, no, fuck, they're still there. And then when I had to turn around, and it's probably a good thing, is that they went early. And so they went with about 550, 600 to go. Yeah,
they had a canvas on you at 500.
Yeah, they really went for it. And they went through and they were in front. Yeah. And I was like, they were in front. And I turned around. And it was the first time that anyone had been in front of us with 500 metres to go. And I was like, shit. I remember just telling Bondi to free it up, keep it smooth. And we knew Ārepa. I know Ārepa like back of my fucking hand. And I knew that the island that comes past Waikato Rowing Club is about 350 to go. And I could see the island out of the side, and I could see the British stern. It was still there. And I said to Bondi, I was like, let's go. Lift it up. And so we started tapping it along. And of course, because they put in some gas, they were waiting. They were waiting for that 250 to come, because if they had tried to go early, I think they would have rode in wet cement, probably blowing. And so we went, and we got in front by like that 2 feet or whatever it was through the 250, and that's how it stayed all the way to the finish line. And it was only because we went early that we got that lead back that they had tried to go before at that 600 mark, which was predominantly what we used to do. So for whatever reason, we didn't do it. I think we did call it, but it just didn't happen, and they went for it. And going to that finish line, when we crossed that finish line, fuck, what an unbelievable race. And I was just like, I knew we'd won it.
You did know, yeah.
I knew we'd won it because I knew, like, you can look across, even though there was a lane separating us, I knew we'd won it. I looked across, I was like, we got it. And so I was celebrating, I was like, it's us. And like still looking to make sure we won it. But we won it. And of course, I was just like, you beauty. And then that sparked in us, like, we're not letting that happen again. Like, that's never going to happen again. And so we really, I think the focus going forward from that point in time just completely flipped. We focused more on the way that we wanted to do it and our technique. We tinkered with a few things in the boat to get a better feel and a better setup, and then we changed the thing. And then we went super fast, and we went away that year in 2011, real quick during the season. Probably the best race was that they went and raced the first World Cup, and they won it. And so of course you watch the TV, and blah, blah. And then we went to Hamburg, and they'd had this massive E. coli outbreak.
Oh fuck!
But we still went. And they were like, nah, we think it's going to be fine. And so we went, but the British didn't end up coming. A few of the other countries didn't come, but it was still a half-decent World Cup. And we smashed it, and we flew down that course, and we won by 19 seconds.
Wow.
And so I was like, that's very good. And so then when we got to Lucerne, it was all eyes on our race, man. And we went through the heat, through the semi, all on the same time. I think they slightly went quicker than us in the semi. So when we were in the final, mate, everyone was on the banks watching, because it was like, this is going to be a fucking humdinger. And I think we were, for whatever reason, we were put as the first race after lunch, because I remember watching the race, and you can see all these club eights that have done these schoolboy races that they do over the lunch period, and then here comes us down the track. So everyone's tuned in, eyeballs on. And I remember getting on the start. I remember in the warm up, and we sorted it out. And Hamish was nervous because he always, when he went quiet, I was like, he's pretty nervous. And I knew that we had the goods, and I said to him, we're going to go. I said, we're going to get out in front. We're going to do what we used to do, and we're not going to be conservative. We're going to fucking go for it, and we're not going to stop until we're out, and we've got a lead. So the commentator, when I watch it back, because I still watch it back nowadays, and he's like, I expect the British to lead after 500, and blah blah blah. The Kiwis will come back through, and we're going to have a sprint to the finish. They're half a length down at 250, and they're like languishing the field, and Martin Cross is like, and about a minute into the commentary, he's like, I really need to apologise, because this is not what I thought the British were going to do. And it was like, they were behind, and they were behind bad, and so we kept going. We fucking put the foot down, and we kept going. Got out in front. We had like about 3 seconds at the K. We were 5 seconds through the 1500, and then I said to Hamish, I was like, wind it when we're going to sprint.
Keep going.
I was like, go up, and we kept sprinting, because I was like, fucking smash him. And we went, and then we crossed the finish line, and it was when I pulled out the fake binoculars, and I did the whole fake binocular. Oh, it was real bad, because the boat lurched over, and this Bondi looked around and goes, what happened? And I said, don't worry about it. And then, of course, everyone was talking about it. And then Bondi watched it back. He goes, why the fuck did you do that? And I was like, well, did you want to? And he's like, yeah. So even though Bondi, it was a lot of emotion that had worked up to that race, but it was because of this Carapero race. And then the one part about it was that you turned up to that event, and all the media and everyone was like, oh, the British are going to win. Yeah. They're going so fast. And they were going faster than they were that last year, but we had moved on again. It was one of those lessons we'd learnt from that 4, where we didn't evolve. We didn't try and look at the little things that could make us better and quicker and faster, but we really did it when we were in the pair, and so we pushed ourselves out further. So that was the Lucerne World Cup. And then, of course, we got to the World Champs in Bled, and I think we were on 2 different sides of the draw, so we never met anyone till the finish, and it was a reasonably flat day, and Hamish and I missed out on the world record by about half a second in pretty still conditions. We were the fastest on percentage out of any boat in the whole thing, and we beat them by about 3/4 of a length. We had well over clear water in the 1,000. They got right back to us in the third 5, but then we pushed out again and sort of gave that little bit of advantage, but then the last little bit they were really sprinting, so they sort of got a bit of overlap, and we finished. And then that was the last time we ever raced in the pair.
Did they go to the 4 or the 8?
So they went into the 4, won another gold medal in London.
So they did win. Yeah.
So who gives a shit, right? And that's one thing, you look at it. They went and did that, and then they went into the 8 in Rio. So they're 3-time Olympic gold medalists, bang, 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 in a row. no one will ever talk about the fucking the 13 silver medals that they got to me and Hamish. They don't care. They'll be like, man, yeah, we won a few silvers in there, but they'll just go, we won X number of world champs, which they did. You know, they'd won 02, 03, 05, 06, you know, and then they won 17, 18, 15, 16. I don't know if they won 14, you know, but they'll be like, yeah, we've got 5 odd world champs and 3 Olympic gold medals. Who cares? You know, but the rivalry that we had there was a stunner. And I really enjoyed it. I flourished on it. I was I'm happy-go-lucky. Like, I talk to people and I had a good relationship. A few beers with Andy. Pete was quite regimented. He was a Navy guy. Bondi fucking hated them, eh? He just hated them. And I was like, yeah.
He's just trying to Dunedin, mate.
He goes, nah.
We've got similar outlooks, like chip on the shoulder.
Yeah, he's like, nah. And I'm just like, nah, they're all right, man. Don't worry about it. And he's like, nah. He's like, man. And so that was the relationship that Bondi had with Pete and Andy, whereas mine was a lot more cordial. And it was, even to a point, and Andy being Pete being such an anal bastard, was when we broke the world record in the Olympics. All the boys like shaking hands, and then Pete goes, I would shake your hands, but I just don't want to get sick or something around with it. And I'm like, righto, Pete. And of course Bondi was just basically wanting to tell him to fuck off.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. But it was those early years in the pair really solidified us. And I think that rivalry that we had with them, Bondi fed off it quite a lot, and I fed off it in training because I was like, we'd call moves, I'd be like, British beside us, all of this. And so we could motivate each other to really do it. And then of course, when we got into races, it was always just about trying to do the best that we could. And then when we had them, it was like, we'll just do anything, we'll die at the sword to do it. And if we'd ever got beaten by them, I would have taken my hat off and said, yeah, we either didn't race it very well or we need to go back to the drawing board or whatever. But every time that we lined up on the course and the British was beside us, it was all on, pal. It was like, this is it. We're going to empty tanks and reserves. And that's what it was going to take. And we knew that's what it was going to take. And that's why I think the British and us were so far superior than everybody else. And then there was sort of this fight around the bottom end for the bronze. But then when they left and it came into the Olympics, then actually a few more people started coming back into the fold, and the French jumped back into the pair, and they ended up getting silver because the British were gone, whereas they had been foddering around that sort of third place, and it was just part and parcel with like, I guess how the pair eventuated through that period of time.
And you made both Olympics non-contest. That was on purpose.
The first in London, I have always been a realistic guy, right? And I talk about it when I talk about realistic expectations, about knowing your capabilities. It's like if you were going to go and say, I want to go and bench press 140 tomorrow, and you've never done it, do you really think you're going to do it? Do you know what I mean? But you're like, but I did 120 the other day, so I could probably do 121.
Yeah.
That's a realistic expectation. And so with us, if we do pieces and we had good water or flat or a tailwind and we did a time, I'll be like, I think we can sustain that. If we were tapped out at the finish of it, I'll be like, I think that's too quick. I don't think we can carry on with that. So we went back to Lucerne for our 10-day out 2K time trial, and we raced against the woman. No, we raced against Pete and Storm in the double, lightweight double, and the men's double, Nathan and Joe, and we went super fast. We basically broke the course record at Lucerne on a flat day. We did like 6:17 or something, which was 3 seconds outside world record. No wind, flat water. We beat Pete and Storm, I think, a second on time, which we should never have done. And we were maybe 2 seconds slower than double. And I was like, that's fast, man, that's fucking quick. And everybody, we were on like 99%. And I think the next might have been women's lightweights were about 98.5 or 97. And everybody was like, man, that's fast. And I was like, yeah, it is. So then when we went into the first race at the Olympics, and I said to Bondi, let's just have a good push over the course, and we broke world record by 6 seconds. We were relaxed, it was good, we just did it was perfect. And then after that, I was like, this is ours to lose, right? And it was. We're still going out there to focus on everything, but every race that we did from that point was like, get through the first part, get into the groove, don't let the boat slow down, and just move away. And we did it on every single time. And then of course, when in the final comes around and you're like, fuck, it's all stress and anxiety, it's an awful feeling. And then you get out into the race, and it starts off reasonably well, and you get through that first minute or two of just everything just being a bit of a blur, and then all of a sudden you hit the stride, and then people start to drift back, and then you can look across, and the French were still sort of with us, which I knew they would be till about the 750. Then all of a sudden we start moving, and then they're over here, and they're pushed back, and then you're going through the 1,000, and then all of a sudden Clearwater starts opening up, and then Bondi's turning around going, go, and he's just like, let's go, and then we're like nearly 2 lengths clear at the 500 to go, and then it's just like, hold it on, don't have to, we wound it a bit, but we didn't really sprint it out, and then you cross that finish line, it's like, thank God we didn't fuck it up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first emotion.
So it was relief?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
You're like, and then you're just like, you beauty. But the very, very first emotion is literally, thank God we didn't make it up.
And then to do it for 4 more years, was that just to solidify?
Oh, the thing was, we had always talked about it, and everyone talks about it prior, going, oh, what do you think you're going to do? And I'm like, oh, we'll probably go again, but it's all dictated, because if we'd fucked it up, I wouldn't have gone again. Yeah. I'd be like, no way. I don't know. Probably not. Probably, but probably not. And so then, and then we just basically, I think we had finished up with Dick, because we'd had the big falling out with him, and I was like, we're not doing this again. Bondi was like, he's never going to coach us again. I was like, that's fine. Then we got Noel over, and we revolutionised how you should row. Yeah. And I think it's one thing I really enjoyed, and I don't know if I think it's been utilised better. Mahe was slightly doing it on his own accord, but we probably refined it even better. Because he did it because he had a back issue. But I said to Noel, I was like, look, Zach's on the ground, he's won, Bondi is married, weren't wanting to have any kids, but he was wanting some time. And I said, how can we do this where we're not just rowing twice a day, every bloody day? And I said, we still need to train a lot, but can we do less rowing? And he's like, yes. And I was like, oh. So what we did was we rowed every morning.
Was your training age affected, do you think?
Nah, it was all about trying to have a bit more fun.
Yeah.
And so we trained on the water every morning with the team and the squad, doing pieces, whatever. Then in the afternoons, we would either erg, bike, we threw in a row every now and again. And the fitness went up. The training, the physical training time in heart rate zones went up. The enjoyment went up. The freedom, the flexibility was so much better. And we went as fast as we were ever going. And so we went to the world champs in Korea that year, and we turned up, and it was like 32 degrees with a fucking 98% humidity, and it was so hot. We went out for a first row, and we did about 8K, and I looked at my heart rate, it's like 190. And I said to Bondi, I was like, what's your heart rate? And he's like 178. And I was like, have you ever seen it that high? And he's like, nah. And I said, let's go in. So we went in, and we sat down with physiologists, and I said, we can't do this. I was like, we're going to cook ourselves. So then we completely changed. We started doing quite a bit of erg stuff off water and bikes as warm-up. Then we'd get on and we'd row up to the top, and then we'd do maybe 6K of pieces or whatever we had to do, and then we were off. So then we're done. And that was, just making sure he's careful with that. Thanks. And so that was putting in all of this different training stuff into what we needed to do. So we didn't have to do as much like rowing as such. And then we won the world champs easy. We rowed away. We nearly equaled the old world record in the semi-final, and it was just solidified that we made this change. We're actually doing less rowing, but we're doing more time training. So we were fitter, we were still as fast, we were probably in a way better mental space in everything that we were doing. And then it was just like, yeah, perfect. And then of course we were just trying to find ways to keep fresh and to keep mentally stimulated, and that's where we started doing the singles in the summer. So we did the singles that year, and then turned up to our meeting in March, and Bondi goes, should we do the Cox and the Coxless pair? And I was like, oh, fucking hell, okay. And so I'd always thought about it. It was one of these things where you're like, it could be a bit of fun, but at the same time, only a few people have ever done it.
Who coxed you?
Caleb. Yeah. And so that was a really cool thing, because it was something different, and we really had to focus on it, and we had to buck up our ideas when we got overseas, because we're like, shit, we're going to have to do the Cox pair and the Coxless, and you're carrying 55 kgs of dead weight and a bigger boat, even though it's still a pair. So it's like, okay. But what happened was everyone used to say, oh, it's so heavy, it's just, it's such a fucking tank, and you've got to be really big and powerful. And the guys that used to do it were. But we just started to figure out that you just got to get it up to speed and then not let it slow down, right? We use the same philosophy.
It's like a big gear on a bike.
It is.
Yeah.
And so what we started to do was we got it up to speed, tapped it along, and then all of a sudden we're going fast. And so when we got into the racing in Amsterdam, the first race we it was obviously the heat, and we went through that, won it straight into the final. And then of course we went through the pair heat the next day, and then we had one day off, and then we had the pair semi-final, and then we had the Cox pair final. So we've doubled our workload that we normally do, and so that was always going to be a big issue. And then when we got into the race, we just did the same thing we'd always done, and we were like, we don't need to muscle this out of the start. We've just got to get it up to speed and then tap it along. So everyone pissed away from us. Like we were nearly a length behind. Well, not clear water, but like we were on bow on stern. After about 300 meters. No, because Caleb was in control.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And then, but once we found that it took about that 300 meters to get up to speed, and then once we got up to speed, Caleb's got the speed coach, and he's like telling us we're holding pace. So then we tapped it along, and so while everyone else slows down, we didn't slow down. Yeah. So we did a 1:37 first 500, and then we did a 1:34 second. So we've gone faster in the second 5 than we did in the first, because it takes a bit of time to get up to pace. So then all of a sudden the commentators are like, holy fuck, these guys are on like 6:30 pace. And we were like, well, we were just tapping along. And we just kept the speed. We didn't sprint. Well, we pushed it to the line, but you just can't. It was really hard to create more speed. But that whole philosophy of just keeping the pace. And then we crossed the finish line, bang, 11-second world record. Yeah. Yeah. And it was like, and then that had stood for like 23 years or some stupid thing. And so we were just like, wow, it was amazing, And so, but then the real test came when we went to the pier the following day, and we're biking down to the lake, and I'm in front of Bondi, and he's going pretty slow. And I'm like, you're right. And he's like, oh, my legs are real tired. And I was like, well, I'm not going to tell you my legs are fucking tired as well. Yeah. And so we got down, we did our warm up and everything, got on the water, just didn't have the same sting in the legs. Yeah. And because we're tired. And then we basically got out in the race. Same thing happened again. We were behind, and then we really pushed through the second. 500, and then we got to a point where we were like equal with the British. We didn't pass them until after the 1,000. And then we just pushed, and we set the second fastest time ever. Yeah, so that year was fun, and I think that once we did that, it was like righto, because you find we sort of didn't get it because we had the Ārepa World Champs, but the way the Olympic cycles work is there's like you come out of an Olympic cycle and you've got new rejuvenative energy, new project. You might switch boats or the fields change because people are doing different things, and then you get to the middle ones, like just another year, and then it's a qualifying year. So of course we went into 2015 in France, and we had sort of been trying a few things with training, and we'd been doing the bits and pieces, and we didn't go overseas early enough. We stayed here for another month, because I was like, I just don't want to go and live out of a suitcase for 3 months. And Bondi was the same, and we left it about a week too long because it got real cold here, man. Shit, it got real cold. Then we went over and we raced Lucerne, and it wasn't super quick. We were a bit rusty, and we had this boat. We'd given us a new boat, and we couldn't really get the feel of it. Then we raced the final World Cup, and we got a bit more speed, but I wouldn't have said it was like fantastic. And then of course we got back into our old boat, and we set it all up how we liked it, and it just changed. It was beautiful. And then so we trained away, and we went to France, and we absolutely smashed it. We same thing again. It was sort of it was one time where it was like we had been working on things and it hadn't quite got there. It was still good enough to be winning, but it wasn't quite there. And then when we did the final in Aiguebelette in France, even the commentators, like, we were about, I think we must have been about 12:50. We were into the third 500, and he goes, Kiwis have just kept their speed on wraps all year. He goes, I haven't seen speed like this for them at all in this. He said, I think he said in this Olympiad, he goes, apart from a couple of finals races, and then we won by an ocean of clear water. Like, it was about 7 or 8 seconds over some very good competition. And it was like beautiful, and then that was just like, righto, we've got one more year to go. We've got to go into Rio. And it was really, that year building into Rio was just like, we've just got to do what we'd been doing well. make sure that process goes. And then I nearly all fucked it up when I fell off the bike like the day before we went to fucking Rio. It was wild. I was like, what an idiot. Yeah, it was probably the only thing is we love biking, right? And we did a lot of cycling in Europe, and Bondi would find these fucking hills, man, and it would be like, and of course he knew I hated them, but I'd try and keep up with them for as long as I could. And I would go till I popped. And sometimes I'd get up and over a hill with him, and he'd turn around and he goes, I didn't think you'd get up there. And so, but this is the mutual respect, right? Because he's amazing on it, and I'm 10 kilograms heavier going up this hill, and he knows that if I'm working way harder than he is. So if I can keep up with him over a hill, I'm doing well, and he knows it. And so that was always the go point of like, if he knew, how good we were going and stuff, and he said it to me one time. And then of course we did our time trial before we went away. We were in Lucerne, and then the Dan goes, oh, you guys could just do a Lucerne, you don't really need to go for a bike and whatever. And so we went back to the hotel, and Bonnie goes, no, we'll just go for one more ride. And yeah, cool. So we're riding around, and it was real good, and we were like, right, we've probably done nearly 2 hours, and we were on our way back, and we went round this like little bit of road, and Switzerland's beautiful because there's these little side roads for the bikes, tar sealed, beautiful, and we had to cut off the road because there was all these trees, and then get back onto it, and he came past me around this corner, and then kept going up, and then he turned to me, and he was like, come up on the path. And I couldn't hear him, and I said, what's that? And he goes, up on the path. And so I was about a wheel wide of him, and then he went up onto this path, and the thing wasn't very big, and so I hit the curb at the end of the fucking thing going up, and I just
over the handlebars.
Oh, mate, everything. It was like that, bang. I've still got the I can't remember what arm it is.
There you go.
Yeah, I've still got the Barkos scar and like down my and it happened so quick, and bang, and I'm on the ground, and I'm like, I didn't have my gloves on, so I've got these I'm pulling stones out of my hand.
Have you done an AC on your shoulder as well?
No, and I'd landed on the shoulder, and so this was all grazed down, and my leg was and all my clothing was fucking ripped up, and I'm just like, and I'm sitting on the ground. I had the moment of, do my feet work, do my legs work, whatever, and I was like, took a deep breath. I was like, oh, my chest fucking hurts, and I was like, shit, and the handlebars are all bent in, and I'm like, fuck. And Bondi comes back, and he goes, what happened? I was like, I don't know, I followed you up and I missed the fucking curb. And so we had a look at it, and he's like, shit. And so by this stage I'm walking okay, nothing hurts. I coughed a bit, and I'm like, doesn't hurt, but it does hurt to really deep breathe. So I'm like, fuck, I've probably got some bruising in my sternum or something. And I think it's lucky I hit my sternum, so I didn't hit any ribs.
Yeah.
And we cycled back, and
you pissed him with blood?
No, I had blood, like, knees and legs and hands and everything. All my hands and arms all fucking crazed up. And I'm like, oh god. And so then when the wheel was a bit buckled, but we had literally only about 4k to go. After all these years of cycling, and it was a fucking day before we flew Rio, and basically rode back into the compound of where we were staying, and the manager saw me, and she went white, and she's like, what happened? I was like, I fell off a bike. And she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. I said, I'm okay now, but I just need to get off, cool down, have a shower, and do it. Next minute, everyone's in the room, fucking physios in the room, managers in the room, Noel and that, they're doing the boats, they're gone, like, and we're just like, and I'm like, fuck. And then all the boys are coming in, Jade's coming in, he's like, fuck, you're right. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think I'm okay, and I was like, oh my god. And then sort of myself out, and I'm like, apart from the chest being a bit sore, I'm good. So then I was like, well, yeah. And so then I said to the doctor, Chris Milne, I said, should I just jump on some antibiotics just in case, right? Just get it out of the way before we get to Rio. The water's shit in Rio. Let's do a course before we arrive. He's like, yeah, no, sweet. So did all of that. And then apart from the hands probably being the worst, everything else was fine. And first got over there, I was wearing long sleeves, and then we did a media thing, and like Michelle Pickles was like interviewing us. And I took this long sleeve off, and she's like, what happened? I was like, oh, I fell off my bike the other day. And she's like, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah. And then, of course, bang, news article. I'm like, oh, it wasn't that bad. But it was, but it wasn't. Yeah. But I remember always looking back on it, thinking that literally, when you think about it, you take risk, right? Calculated risk. This was fine. It was just we had always been safe. We never did. Well, I did things stupid because I'd go
apart from Bonnie getting hit by a truck.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I always tried. Like when I went down a hill, if we had a real steep hill, I went full gang.
Yeah,
and I like a couple of times I got 98 k's an hour, full gear. I'm right in tuck position. And Bondi's like, why are you going to that, man? And I'm like, because it's fun.
Yeah.
And I've got the weight and the momentum to get down the hill. He's like, yeah, but what if you fall off? And I'm like, but I haven't. And then, yeah. So that was, it was probably the one thing that, man, if I look back on it now, I've never really liked luck or accounted for it. That's the only time that, man, luck came into play.
Mm. And crossing that finish line?
Oh, yeah.
Did you get relief again?
Nah, I've got to say, and I talk about it when I speak. I didn't enjoy those Olympics. We never should have raced a couple of those days. It was too windy.
So windy, yeah.
It was too windy. You know, the fairness commissions and everything got set up afterwards. You know, Chris, I thought our men's double should have won a medal. I think they were second or third. Their forearms blew up in the first race. Our lightweights struggled. A few other people struggled in different things because the weather was shit. And it literally was. You know, Mahe was very, very lucky to win. You know, so you look at it and you think, I didn't enjoy the racing. You know, whereas in London I enjoyed it because it was fresh, it was cool, you know, we're going to win. Whereas this was like, we were like, honestly, the race was a minute slower. We only just broke 7 minutes. You know, and it was like, it was just horrible. You got water smashing and the boat's lurching and you're trying to keep it straight. And the wind's pushing it at the side and so the boat's crabbing down the lake. So you're like, this isn't fun. Like, we still got to race, you still got to be good in the conditions. Yes, we've done a lot of rowing in those conditions. Like, we were always, like, I remember saying on the start line, I was like, this is ours. I was like, how many times have we raced in worse shit at Carapero? And Bondi's like, yes. And I was like, so what do we need to do? Be clean, don't worry about the start, we're going to push through, bang, 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 done. And that was exactly how it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, you know, it was great to win, but at the same time, you look back on that actual race and it's like, you know, we got out in front, and then because we got out in front, we really put the gas in the middle K. We had nearly 6 seconds through the last, like going into the last 500, so we were well gone. And then there was this epic battle of like British, the Italians and the South Africans on the right. And so I could see them and they were going for it, and the Italians lifted their rate to like about fucking mid-40s. They were going for it. So they came right back through. The South Africans had gone early, so they had got that second place, and so the Italians were fighting with the British. So in the end, we were only about 2 seconds in front. But I was like, doesn't matter. Like, we could have even buttoned off a bit more, but we just didn't. The good thing about what we did in our whole time was figure out where we needed to win the race. And we started understanding that, yes, you only need to win when you get across the finish line. But if you can do the work when everyone's really suffering, which is that middle part of the race where you're on the red line thinking, I can't tip over it yet because I won't make it. If we can be quicker than people when we're all sitting on the red line and there's nothing they can do about it, then we're going to be in front. And that's exactly what we refined. We weren't specifically great starters sprinting. We were okay at the finish. We had the ability to go if we had to, but the rest of it was like, if we win this through the middle of the race, it's ours to win. And that's how we did most of our racing. So we were always the fastest crew in the second and third 500. I've done the data mining. It's very seldom if anyone was quicker than us in those splits. And then it was the last 500, we were probably the fourth fastest most times because everyone else is sprinting and we're just holding. You know, we didn't have to sprint, but the race was finished. It wasn't finished, but it was almost, we're basically just about to put the zipper across the bag. Ready? Bang. And that would always happen at the finish line. But it was still open, but it was pretty much shut. And that was what I think was, I look back on our time looking at that consistency of what we did, and the ability to do it on repeat when it needed to be done. You know, if the coach had said we're going to do a race tomorrow, we'd be like, right, so do it. Even if he'd said we're going to do one this morning, I still felt like we were in a position where we knew we had the process and the focus to be able to do it because we'd done it on repeat. Nothing had to change. The whole warm-up process didn't have to change. If something got thrown out, it didn't bother us. We practiced it so many times, and that's what led us to be I guess that above the rest of everybody else, because we could just do it when it mattered, but do it on repeat, no change. And if it did change, it didn't rattle us. It was just like, whatever. And that was one of the things we did. We changed all our warm-up stuff to do probably 60% of it off the water. So we would be on the bikes for like 25 minutes, just fucking busting away, sweating, and then we'd get on the water, and then all we had to do was like that sort of fartlek / just priming stuff, just fast, short burst, fast. And then, of course, we get into the race and the body's already warmed up. You've got the blood flowing, the muscles are warm, and then it's just bang into the race. We didn't have to go onto a lake and try and do 40 minutes of this stupid, like 750 metre thing. And it's really interesting because not a lot of people were really doing anything like that. And it was Dan that was like, you guys we need to change your warm-up. And he was the one that really did massive change without like stuff like that. Because he saw an opportunity in what was actually being done by everybody, and then brought it back in to be like, hey, you could do this way better, and it's going to be so much like you'll really benefit from it.
Yeah, beautiful. How do you unwind from all that? That's where you picked up the sticks and started
golf.
Yeah, chasing line fox.
Chasing foxy. Yeah. I always played golf as a kid, and yeah, literally the bug got me and got back into me, I guess.
No John Key hole in ones this year.
Nah, I haven't. I'll tell you what, mate. I was in Hamilton the other day, and I put it to buddy 4 inches. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
You do need a video like John Key.
Oh, I will. Yeah, but his was. Yeah, I'd love to do it on a big occasion. I think golf's great, right? It is very time consuming. I get it. I have taken some of the skills from my sport and just understand that it's practice and it's technique. I just know that if I'm not going to push it further than what I am. Like I'm a 4 handicapper. I play good golf. I can eagle, I can birdie heaps of holes, but I can also make some shit. And that's what it is. If you don't keep the driver in the fairway, it's terrible. But it's fun. I go out with friends and we play, and you can haggle with people that are on higher handicappers, and you can play different courses, and there's different shots and different trouble, but it's fun and enjoyable 4 hours. And the good thing is, like with Zach, he loves being outside, so I'll walk him around the course. At the moment it's a bit hot, so we'll get a cart today. But he can be out and about, and that's what I enjoy, is because otherwise we're going to be stuck in here. He loves being outdoors, even non-verbal, doesn't talk. He'll giggle away, and the other day
does he know when you're having a bad time? He reads you well?
Nah, I don't tend to have a bad time, mate. I'm realistic. If I had a bad shot, I'm like, I'm just not good enough.
Yeah.
But I do like golf for those reasons, and I think it is fun. And it, as I say, I really enjoy playing it, and it is quite a good relief for me just to go out and have a hit, have a whack, and so be it.
It's a good way to shake hands with some people in fundraisers, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I do a lot of that. I do a bloody lot of that, I should say.
Shaking hands, trying to get in front of the right people.
Oh, mate, that's it. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah. And
partially.
Well, just in New Zealand, that's been a...
Yeah. Well, when after Treasure Island, when I did Treasure Island, I got approached by the CEO, Dane Dugan, and he was like, hey, would you be interested in being a patron? Because we really haven't had one, the organisation and bits and pieces, and we just love you as a voice, and you can do media stuff or, just acknowledge things. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then, it's been great, just a face to it and being part of it. And, we're now trying to get into some community housing stuff and providers. And I think one of the best things was before Christmas, we had a function down in one of our big supporters is the general manager of the Ridges in Wellington Airport. So we were there having a function, and they had a board meeting for our trust, and we were down there and took a mate down there, and we played golf at Paraparaumu Beach, and then we came back and having function, having a few beers, and I said to the CEO, I said, hey Dane, what do you reckon if I could get Chris Lux in here, come and have a drink with us? And he's like, what? And because I'm good friends with Chris, because we were working with him with Air New Zealand and stuff, I'd sent him a message earlier that day saying, because we try and catch up when we can, because we've got a good relationship. And he said, we're flying out later tonight to going back to Auckland. And I said, well, we've got a function at Ridges Wellington Airport, so we can stop by. And then he had said, we might be able to make it. just checking if timing's going to be too tight. And then the next minute I get this message from a random number saying, Chris will be with you shortly. And then bang, round the corner comes like 3 police officers. No, because we're in the airport hotel. Three police officers, 2 Secret Service. They come in, they fucking have a look around, and then bang, Chris comes around the corner. Hey, so we're having a chat. So our chairman and our CEO and a few people were having a chat, and we had, because Bill English is on one of our boards with community housing. So he's having a chat to Bill, and he was there for about 10 minutes, and we were blah, 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 chatting, and then bang, on the plane.
Off he goes.
And I was like, and everyone's like, holy shit. I was like, yeah, I just sent him a message. So when people go, oh, who's the most famous person in your phone? I'll be like, it's probably Chris at the moment. So.
Yeah. And how'd the Lego giveaway go?
Really good. Yeah, I've got, I've got to give a few more out because we managed to get hold of a lot more from Lego New Zealand. So we're, there's plenty of stuff like that to give away. So, I love doing bits and pieces like that I can. And at the end of the day, if I've got a platform and the ability to do it, then that's us.
Nice.
Hey, pal, we've got my boy back. Hey, there you go. Daddy's just about finished, pal.
Yeah, I'll ask you the last question there, Eric. What keeps you in flow?
What keeps me in flow?
Do you have a mantra?
Do you mean my coffee in my bathroom?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
A
mantra or a way you live your life or a quote or something?
Quote or something. Yes and no. I feel like I just live on, like, especially with like Zach and all the other bits and pieces with Zach, I feel like that you should just do what you want to do, right? You gotta enjoy what you're doing. Life is too short. Recently there's been changes in family and people getting sick and other things. So you just like, look, you've got to really enjoy doing what you're doing. At the end of the day, there should be no regrets, because if you make decisions and they don't work out, it doesn't matter, right? You tried something and it didn't work out. Who cares, right? But I think if you're taking care of yourself and doing what you want to do, yes, world's a complicated fucking mess, right? It's a mess. So many people with so many different ideologies and everything else. But as long as you're happy with what you're doing and the decisions that you're making, then it's the most perfect way you can try and live your life. And that's what I do. I try and have fun, try and do anything that I can to help people when I can. But at the same time, I'm just trying to live the best life, that I personally can, And with Zach, he's going to take a lot of my time and stuff going forward. And a lot of the things that I've been doing with my houses and renovating and everything is to get me to a position where, one day I can have a property where we'll have a little flat or something out the back that he can live in and the care and support that he needs, because he is quite high needs. And it's just things that you get, whatever happens in your life. Like I found like I got quite holistic with my rowing and the technique and the feelings and all this sort of thing. And I think that rubbed a little bit on life. But, at the end of the day, people talking shit about you or negative, who cares? Fuck, whatever. It's like, does it affect me? Nah. So whatever's not affecting you, like, just carry on. Do what you want to do. And I know we've got to work together and we've got to be kind to one another. But that is literally how you're going to get through, right? And it's just doing the best that you can, paving a way for yourself going forward, and that's all I try and do. Beautiful. That's it. Well, that's it, right? And you can't. All the factors that I can control, I'll do as the best that I can to put them into the best possible way. But anything that's out of your control, move on, carry on, because you can't do anything about it.
Absolutely, completely agree. Thanks very much, Eric.
No worries, pal.
Cheers.
It's been fun.
It was fun. Awesome.